Hello, hello, hello. And today I have a bit of a longer and complex tutorial for you. We will be doing a bricked house wall with that has its surface cracked. So if you so you select part of the bricks underneath. It is kind of a very large tutorial, so this will take quite a bit. So I hope you brought some patience today. And screencast keys still laggy and still lagging Blender, so I apologize for any um, micro stutters that Blender will maybe have, because yeah, it's just slowing down the whole program for whatever reason. Okay, um, let's start. First of all, we need um, a brick texture because that will be our underlying texture. So let's bring this in. Control T, delete the mapping because we don't need that. Vector into vector, and let's just plug this into base color for now because it can stay there. Size again, keep it like you want it to keep. For this, I'll put it to 1.5, just so that we can actually see what is happening and don't have like such a small thing. But again, do the size like you want the size, not how I do the size. Water size down to 1.05, so we have a bit smaller things, and we want to keep this as pretty black. We might not have it as total black, but keep it pretty dark, and we want this to have the colors that we want our brick wall to have, so something like this. Probably, I don't know which color your bricks are supposed to be, but mine are supposed to be this darker red slash brownish color. Okay, then let's get a noise map into here and plug this into here and object into vector, and we put this factor into the mortar smoothness. And what this basically does is it creates these little inconsistency here. If we, for example, now put the detail to max and put the distortion to 0.2, you can see how our things here are slightly distorted. We can of course scale this down as well, right? And now you can see how our bricks get distorted. I probably keep this as a 15, something like this. This works well. If you want this to work better, you can put a color ramp here. Yeah, there was a lag of, and you can of course make this affected more and stuff. But yeah, this is the basic setup, and let's continue. We now want a second noise texture, so let's duplicate this and bring this up here. Object into vector again, and we want a scale of 5. And the roughness of 6.5. And let's bring in a color ramp here. Not a combined color, a color ramp. Here, factor into factor. And let's bring it up to around about here. And let's select those two. And Control 0. We'll change this goes to factor, this goes into color 1, and this down here will get a dark brownish color. Or light brownish color, so we have a bit of surface imperfections um, on the actual bricks itself. You can of course make this any color you want, but I like a brownish color, so makes it bluish, or I don't know, like something like this. But I like this dark brownish color here, so I will keep it at that. Now, we will need to set something up because this will use again an adaptive an adaptive subsurface as subdivision. So I already explained this in my sandtune video, but basically what you're going to do is you're going to go down to the material and you are going to change this from bump only to displacement and bump. Then you're going to go back into here and you're going to add a subdivision. Yours is not going to look like this because I have the feature set experimental. So you're going to change into that and you can go into here and then you press adaptive subdivisions. You can play with these numbers. The icing scale is the smaller this is, the lower it gets subdivided. Same with level of viewport, the higher this is, the more it gets subdivided. I would keep this at 1 if you don't want to lag out your PC, because this can be taxing really, really quickly. And if you want to refresh your mesh, you just go into edit mode and go back, and that should refresh the mesh. Because what we are going to do now is we are going to add a displacement later down the line, which basically uses this adaptive subdivision. But for now, keep it at that. I'm probably just gonna go a bit less. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, for now, just keep this in mind. Now we are going to add more to this. So we're gonna bring in a Musgrave texture, or rather a double Musgrave texture, because now we're gonna add our actual wall over the bricks. So Musgrave, we need 2 of those. So change this to 4D, duplicate it, put this on top. Control. Oh, I wanted to not want to redo that. Control T. That was what I wanted to do. Object into vector. Object into vector. Control 0 to mix, and we want this to go to lighten. And we can rename this to damage amount. Because this is basically what it'll do. It will control our actual damage, and we will plug this to 5. And the scale goes to 2.5. Details max 2.5. Dimension stays at 2. Dimension goes down to 0.4. And we're going to change this to heteroterrain twice. And the offset goes to 0.4. And we're going to do this for the second 2. So this stays at 0. Scale goes down to 2.5. Details max. Dimension 0.4. This stays, and this goes to 0.4 as well. Okay. Now, let's add another Musgrave texture on top here. But this time we'll keep it at FBM. Object into vector again. And let's preview this as well. Scale goes down to 2.5 again. And detail max 0.4. And this stays at 2. And now we're just going to select those 2. Control 0. Change this to lighten again. And rename this to damage amount 2. And now we can play with this, and this is basically, you can already see this will be how much damage our thing will have. So here I like a 6.5. Again, we will look at this later as well, and we will plug this down for now to 0, but we can later plug this up again. I just actually want to see some damage and not just have the whole thing be fine. Okay, let's bring in a color ramp here. And pretty much put this to here, so we have a very flat top surface. And we can preview this again. And now we select this, and we select this. Control 0. This goes into the top spot, and this goes into the factor, and this down here will be the color that we are later going to use. So something around this lines. Yep, that's pretty good. And now we kind of want to already start to get into our displacement map. So what we are basically going to do is we're going to grab this color ramp, put this down. This color goes into this. We're going to reset it. And we are basically going to make this not as drastic. So we are going to turn down this white to a bit of more grayish and bring this a bit up. Right about here. So it looks kind of like that. So we have a more even surface here. Something along these lines is probably fine. Yes. And now we need this top part here, and we're gonna bring in a color ramp as well. Plug this into here. This doesn't, no, just duplicate. Just bring it up to here because we need a second of this. We definitely need more space, so I am gonna make more space. This can go back. Okay. We now need to mix those two. This into the factor and this into that, and this will be fully white. And then we select this and bring this into here. And now you can already see like we have separated our thing, and now we just want to get rid of the black parts here, so we are gonna make this probably more like this. Yeah, that's better. You wanna basically separate the background from the foreground, which is what we did here. And now we can start plugging this into our bump nodes. So we're gonna grab two bump nodes. This is not a displacement node yet. That will come later. Don't worry about it. First bump node, second bump node. Already plugged into the height here. So normal to normal. Strength goes down to 0.1. This strength stays at 1, and we're basically gonna take this and plug this into the height here. And this can stay like that until normal. Let's preview this. You can already see we have some distance. Obviously not enough, like this doesn't nearly have enough depth as it's supposed to. So what we are going to do, also you can see like it's a bit very fishy and not really standing out like it's supposed to. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to bring in a displacement map now. Displacement, put this here. Displacement goes into displacement. And we are basically going to take this part here and just plug this into the scale. So damn. That obviously is way too much, right? So we're gonna bring down the mid level a lot, and we're gonna bring down the mid level to like a 0.001. Yeah, that looks pretty good, and we can see now, okay, these are supposed to go outwards, right? And they're doing that. Let's refresh our mesh. Yes. Is this going into displacement? Yes, it is. Great. And now we want an invert node here. Nope, not a volume info. We want an invert node here. So let's plug this into here. Invert node. And we have the first step done. This is now looking way better. We can actually we have an actual displacement here now that goes inwards. And you can see that we have some separation from our stones and our surface texture. Okay, let's bring this down. And let's get to work on the next part, which basically is the actual surface imperfections. So what we're going to need, we're going to need more space here. So I'm going to bring these upwards. And we are going to bring a new mask graph texture here. Control T, get a new texture coordinate. Into vector again. And we need noise texture. So put that to here. Object to vector again. Let's preview the mask graph first. Scale of 5, detail max again. Dimension 0. And this to 2.4. This goes down to 0.03. And this goes max again. And distortion, I like always a little bit of distortion. So Control 0, let's mix this. And let's put this down to 0.2, so something like this. This looks very good. And now we wanna take this mix node here, duplicate it, put it here. That is exactly what we want. And we wanna bring this and plug us into the factor. And basically we have the underneath, like the actual rocks, now get this bump node that we just did on top. So this is basically our stone texture that we just, our stone bump that we just did, and we can now take this and plug us into a third bump. So let's make a third bump node here. 0.2. I forgot I also need to invert that bump. That is my bad. And into height. Let's preview. And we can see our stones now have a tiny bit of bump, but of course we also want this to just be displaced because we don't only want bump on these, right? So we're going to duplicate the displacement, put this here, and we are going to make this 0 less. So put this onto here, and then we can just grab what we did here and plug this into the scale again. And again, this goes inward. We don't want that, so we're going to invert. So now it goes actually where we want. And we have some bumpy rocks underneath it, or some bumpy bricks underneath it rather, that have this noise texture that we built up here. Okay, we are sadly still not done. This is, like I said, this is a very complex material that does take quite a bit of time to build. So we're gonna give some texture to the actual surface above the bricks. So for that, we are just gonna grab a Voronoi texture, put this here, Control T, delete the mapping again, texture coordinate into object. Let's preview it. Scale. This one is going to be a very large scale. I put this to 100 because these should be very, very small. And we're going to need a color ramp here. And let's drag this up very, very so you can see these things very smallly. Like these should be very, very just miniature. So you have like a small surface imperfection map for now the top part. So what we are going to do is we are going to take this that goes into the second bump here. And we are basically gonna try to plug this into there. So we are gonna bring this to here, bring this to here. We need a bit more space, I think. Yeah, we need a bit more space here. So I'm just gonna move the displacement nodes really up to here. And we're gonna select those two now. And Control 0. No, not this. We're just gonna Control 0 this then. And we are gonna take basically this. Okay, yeah, sorry, I had to look something up real quick. Okay, yeah, this doesn't go into that. Okay, I made a mistake here. Or we can just basically we can just add this as a fourth bump. I'm just changing it up on the fly. I'm just changing it. I'm a bit confused right now. Ah, this is also very very complicated material for me. To keep track of. Just get this part here. Take this as a factor. Put this down in the second, and make this white. And then we can plug this into that height map there, and we now have these small things that are on top of the material that give it a bit more. Should probably invert this too. So now we have some small surface imperfections. Okay, last thing we are gonna do. We are gonna take this stone thing that we did here and plug this into the roughness. So we're gonna take a color ramp, plug it into roughness, and let's make this very non-shiny. So something like it does have a shiny, be shiny a bit, but not too shiny. So something like this probably is fine. And then factor into this, and you now have a material that you can control with these two top parts. You can make it less, you can make it more. You can control how much damage you want on the surface. And overall, it is a very flexible material that should look great on a lot of things. It is very complex, even for my standards. So I hope you could follow along, and I hope you could learn something. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.